You've got questions, I got answers, and a wine recommendation. That's what we have on tap for this week's episode of The Average Wine Enthusiast. Hi there, everybody. My name is Mike LaPlante, and I'm The Average Wine Enthusiast. This week, I thought we'd have a little fun. Well, I hope we have fun every week, but this week I thought we would answer some questions. I have a friend of mine who is a local stand-up comic, but he works a lot in the States. His name's Kendall Harris, and he supported me when I first started talking about the show, shot out lots of ideas, because he is, I believe, a creative type as well, and I think we're sort of kindred spirits in that way. So he wants to like the show, but he is not at all a wine person. So he thought it would be a good idea if I were to answer questions from someone like him who is completely unaware, wine illiterate, as it were. So that's what I thought we would do today, and we're going to drink a little bit of wine a little bit later on. So I'm just going to read these questions just as he typed them to me. Aside from the color, what is the difference between white wine and red wine? Well, the obvious difference is the color, but the reason the color is different is because white wine is made from grapes without the skin on them. So the wine process, the process of making the wine does not include the skin on the grape. Leaving skin on the grape and in the juice and leaving it there for a specific amount of time makes that mixture of liquid something completely different than what you get with a white wine. There's more to it than that, but that's the quick answer, and that's what I'm going to be doing here, giving the quick answers. In a blind taste test, could someone tell the difference between a red and a white wine? Well, I think anybody who's watching the show besides Kendall would know that, yes, you can definitely tell the difference between a red wine and a white wine pretty easily just by tasting it without having to look. What do most people drink, red or white wine? I think I may have discussed this in an earlier show, I'm not sure. But I did look at some numbers, and because I really wondered what the mix was. And it's about 2/3 to 1/3 as far as wine sales go. More people buy red wine than white wine for sure, by basically a 2-to-1 margin. What does it mean when the wine is dry? What it means, Kendall, is that if you were to spill a glass of dry wine on this tablecloth, let's say, it doesn't get wet. It's dry. No, that's not right either. What that means dry, it means that it's not sweet. There are some wines that have more sugary taste in them. So that can happen many ways. Oftentimes it starts right from the grape itself. They let the grape develop so much sugar, and then they make wine from that type of grape. Red wines and white wines, they both have dry and not dry varieties of those different wines. How long does an unopened bottle of wine last before it goes bad? Well, an unopened bottle, depending on what kind of wine it is and how well it was made, can last decades. I know we went to Chateau Montelena in Napa Valley, and they were making a Cabernet Sauvignon that they said would peak in 40 years, which blows my mind. So that means there's still some goodness left in it after that. And how do they know that? It just blows my mind. So yeah, decades. And what is the best way to store wine? Well, the best way to store it is in a dark place and a cool place, and a place where the temperature does not vary a lot. A cellar is a great place. If you got a cellar in your basement, and it's relatively easy to control the temperature in there, that is by far the best place to do it. Out in California, they store their wine. They dig a hole in the side of a mountain, and they make a cellar inside the mountain, so the temperature stays the same all the time. How long does an open bottle of wine last before it goes bad? Well, this also depends on how good the wine is to begin with. If it's a decent bottle of wine, after about 48 hours, it starts losing some of its goodness, I would say. That is a bottle that you opened and then stuck something in the hole to prevent any additional air from getting at it overnight. If you left the bottle open all night, just left it like that, you should probably drink it the next day. But as far as going bad, I would say a week. If you open a bottle and you stuck the cork in it, didn't come home for a couple days, and you wanted to open it, you wanted to have some more wine, I would give it about a week, 7 days, and it still is drinkable. Definitely not bad. Are all wood corks the same? Cork is not wood. Cork is bark, and it's a very specific type of bark. It's the Quercus suber tree. Cork oak, I think, is the English translation there. And we're going to have a discussion on corks. I want to have a good section of a show just talking about corks. So are they all the same? Well, they all come from that tree. Is there different qualities? Absolutely. The price is different too. So there's densities and all that kind of stuff that go on with the grading of corks. If you have a really expensive bottle of wine, a wine that you know is very good, you're going to put an expensive cork in that bottle of wine. Why do some wines come with cork and others twist top? That is a great question, and we're going to be talking about closures in a later show as well, and because that's a huge subject, and a lot of it is up for debate, as it were, as far as what are the pros and cons of not putting a cork on top of your bottle of wine. Boxed wine, pros, cons. Well, the pros of boxed wine are none. There are no pros. Stay away from the boxed wine, people. It's no good for you. There's no good wine that is put in a Mylar bag and then shoved in a box with a little plastic spigot on it. That is not good wine. And the cons, well, I just said the cons, so stay away. What is the perfect bottle of wine for a gift? I don't know. I would say a $100 bottle of Cabernet Sauvignon from Napa Valley, Kendall. Bring it on. And does it depend if it's a birthday, wedding, or holiday? No, it doesn't. What is the most expensive bottle of wine you have ever had? Well, that's kind of hard to say because I know where I've drinking the most expensive bottles of wine, and it's with a friend of mine who's hugely into wine, and I've learned a lot from this gentleman. Word out to Jay. And, you know, he's bought bottles of wine for a few $100, but then he's put it away for years. So that bottle of wine is no longer a $300 or $400 bottle of wine. It's gone up in price. So it's how expensive it is. That's a good question. But hundreds of dollars, I would have to say, as far as a bottle of wine that I had the pleasure of drinking. Why is it in the movies the server pours a little bit of wine into the glass and then the man takes a sip of it to taste it? Check out episode 3, Kendall, and you will know all about the precursor to drinking a bottle of wine. He says, shouldn't it be okay? It's a brand new bottle. Yeah. Why is the man the test dummy and not the female? And that's very good question, because that is somewhat sexist, isn't it? I guarantee you, there's females that know a heck of a lot more about wine than I do, and I would prefer them to tell me if a bottle of wine is good enough to drink. Why do people swirl their wine glass around? Again, episode 3. When people recommend a certain wine with a certain meal, is that done to make the food or the wine taste better, or both? It's both, Kendall. And I want to say that a lot of pairing stuff is where it's at. It's like it's the thing to be doing, pairing certain wines and with certain foods. The old adage was, if you're eating fish, you drink white wine, and if you're eating a steak, you drink some red wine. That is just too big of a generalization to make. We'll talk a lot about pairing in a future show. Is wine good for you? It's good for my soul. Is it good for you? I know that there just recently that it was made known that the alcohol consortium or whatever had paid some doctors to write a study to say that wine was good for you. A glass or two a day is healthy for you. But unfortunately, that was paid for by the people who, it would be like, back in the day, I remember they used to have a cigarette called Trues, and they would say 4 out of 5 doctors choose True cigarettes. It boggles my brain. So the same concept holds true there. Are all wines made from grapes? Heck no. You can make wine out of any organic material that rots, and it will produce sugar, and then that sugar can be turned into alcohol with a little additive of some chemicals, basically. I've had dandelion wine, rhubarb wine, some pretty strong rhubarb wine. And I also went to a cranberry festival, and there was cranberry wine. I wouldn't recommend it. It wasn't very good. Do most wines contain the same ingredients? Heck no. Boxed wines, good example. Is it wrong to buy another man a bottle of wine? No, I told you. You can gift me a bottle of Cabernet Sauvignon from Napa Valley. Do it, Kendall. And the last question. Is it okay to have a glass of wine with breakfast? I would discourage it. If you're going to drink alcohol with, first thing in the morning, I would say, I would suggest like a nice mimosa or some Baileys in your coffee. Okay, thanks a lot for those questions, Kendall, and I hope we can sit down and enjoy a nice glass of wine together at some point. So the next part of the show, I would like to introduce you to a wine that I was turned on to a few months back. I was at my brother-in-law's place, and he had been to Ohio. I think they went and saw a football game, Michigan and Ohio. And he found this bottle of Murph, and he cracked it open for us. And I thought it was very good wine. He said he just found it in a local liquor store there, and just brought it home and opened it up. And I never thought I would maybe be able to find it again, but I knew I would be on the lookout for it when I was over in the States. However, I got the most recent issue of the Vintages magazine from the LCBO, and in there they were listing all the new wines that they were going to be carrying. And sure enough, in there is this Murph wine. I was astounded. So it turns out that this particular wine is from a collaboration from Dave Murfeld, well-known winemaker, I guess. And one of my favorite, and my wife's as well, wineries from the Washington State area. They are called Chateau Saint Michel. My wife and I actually took a drive out there to Washington State in 2017 and visited the winery. Beautiful grounds there, and they got some yummy wines there as well. So probably some of the best wines on the West Coast outside of California for sure. Usually that area is known a lot for their Pinots, and they do make some Pinots, but this is a Cabernet Sauvignon. And the one that we had at my wife's brother's place was a 2015 vintage. The one that they have for sale here at the LCBO is 2016. So I suspect that it will do well to cellar this for some period of time. LCBO designates whether a wine is good to cellar or not, or even to not even drink it at all, just by these little icons that they put next to the wines, and it lets you know whether it's good to cellar or drink it right away, or make sure that you do cellar, because it won't be even near its peak for a little bit yet. So this is definitely cellarable. It was $20, $19.99, I believe, and so it's obviously widespread, and they want to make it available on a widespread basis. I think in the Vintages magazine, they say they want to make it a decent price, but a good wine at a decent price. And I'll tell you, the 2015 was very delicious. So I'm going to try a sip of this right now. It's been decanted for at least an hour and a half. And the reviews that I've read on Vivino, which is an app that you can get on your smartphone, and I highly recommend it. A lot of folks, when I go to the LCBO and I'm walking around the vintage section, they're all got their Vivino app, and basically you can take a photo of any bottle of wine, and it will give you information about it, show you reviews, give you a rating system that shows you what people thought of this wine. It's an amazing app, and it's great to have on your smartphone. And a lot of folks definitely liked. A lot of people said that it needed to breathe, which is the case with every wine, folks. If you're gonna have a decent bottle of wine, make sure it breathes, especially the older wines. Now this is 2016. Here we are in 2019. I haven't drank many 2016s yet. Trying to drink up the 2013s and the 2014s still. And so 2016s, I know it's going to taste probably a little young, but it's 2.5 years old almost. No, it is 2.5 years old, I'm guessing. And it shouldn't be too bad, but let's give it a whirl. Some vanilla, dark cherries, and it smells young. It has that, there's some kind of chemically sort of smell that I get off young wine. Definitely oaky and peppery. Tastes a little lot like pepper, which means the tannins are still young, still working at developing the body of this. Not particularly complex in flavor. Some cocoa in there. And a pretty nice finish, I have to admit. Is this going to be better in a year? As good as I enjoyed it a few months ago, the 2015? I'm not sure. I have high hopes for it. I suspect I'll probably go and buy a few more bottles, stick them in my cellar, and enjoy them at a later time. So I would highly recommend you to pick up a bottle of this stuff here if you get a chance. It's something you won't regret buying, and for $20, this is probably a really good introduction into some West Coast wine from Oregon and Washington. Lots of good wineries are coming out of that area. There's some not so good, but for the most part, there's some decent wine coming out of that area. Well, I guess that's going to do it for this week. Thanks a lot for watching. And if you have any comments, leave them down below. And if you like the show, please subscribe. I'm Mike LaPlante, and I'm the Average Wine Enthusiast. Salute!